Welcome, brave souls, to Carrion Creature Feature, your gateway to the darkest corners of the night. Prepare yourselves for a spine-chilling journey into the realm of true horror sleepover stories, where the shadows come alive and the things that go bump in the night take center stage. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow to stay up to date with our latest terrifying uploads. Share your own chilling experiences in the comments below, and join our community of thrill seekers as we explore the darker side of the night together. So, dim the lights, grab your favorite blanket, and get ready for a sleepover like no other. The Carrion Creature Feature awaits, where true horror comes alive in the stories that will haunt your dreams. Remember, in the world of the unknown, the night is our canvas, and fear is our masterpiece.
My name is Claudia Cohen, and I've known my friends Elise and Mercedes since we were in kindergarten. Our families knew each other. Our neighborhood was a clean and safe suburb where nothing ever happened. Mercedes was turning 16. Her mom, Janice, and her stepdad, John, threw her a huge party. Mercedes and her parents were well-liked, so the entire school and the neighborhood showed up. After that, all three of us spent the rest of the night eating pizza and ice cream and watching movies. Right before bed, we told ghost stories under a fort. It was a tradition for us. Every weekend, every birthday, and every summer. We once made a morbid pact that no matter what happens, we would die together. It was a joke, of course. However, in the middle of the night, little did I know I would be the one to break that pact. Turns out John had a dark secret beneath the floorboards. All three of us could hear the faint sounds of tussling. What stirred us from our sleep, however, was the blood-curdling scream that came from downstairs. "What was that?" Elise wondered aloud, her voice trembling with fear. We sat in silence underneath the fort, huddled with our blankets tightly wound around our shoulders as we heard footsteps ascend the stairs. We turned off our flashlights and hoped to deter whoever stood outside the bedroom. The door slowly opened with a creak, and the light tapping of footsteps leisurely approached the fort. We sat in the darkness, trying desperately not to breathe as our hearts raced. We screamed as the blankets were ripped off, only to see John standing there covered in blood. We ran down the steps as fast as possible and saw two men in the living room. Their clothes were wet with blood, and the room permeated with the stench of carnage and death. In the middle of the room and blocking the path to the front door was Janice. Her throat slit, and her guts were splayed all over the floor. Her face bore a look of horror that'll forever be burned into my memory. Next to her corpse were large Ziplocs filled with a powdery substance. "Mom?" Mercedes hollered, tears streaming down her face from the grotesque visual of her mother's body. She ran back up the steps, and Elise and I ran toward the back door. To our misfortune, it was locked, and we could hear Mercedes scream as one of the individuals caught up with her. One of the others punched a hole through the window of the door, grabbing a hold of Elise's hair. I turned to grab a weapon and saw one of them standing near the kitchen entrance. The man was large and menacing. He stood unmoving, blocking me from running away. Suddenly, he lunged at me and knocked me to the ground, cutting my back on the glass. Elise managed to free herself from the other man's grasp, and I was lucky enough to find a sizable shard to jam into the one on top of me. Blood spurted from the wound in his neck, causing him to grunt and gag as he fell on his back and slowly bled out. Just as I was about to run out of the kitchen, the two remaining individuals came down the steps with Elise and Mercedes over their shoulders. I watched as the two men dropped them down on the ground. "How could you not tell your wife no on the sleepover? Now we have a huge mess to clean up," one of the men stated as he cut Elise's body open, sticking a bag of white powder in her stomach. "She insisted," John blandly responded. "Sew her up, please," the other man demanded. I held my hand over my mouth, trying not to whimper as I made myself as small as possible in the kitchen corner. I heard the unsettling squelching sound of one of the men digging into Mercedes' body and stuffing her like a lifeless drug mule. It made no sense. John had known all of us since we were toddlers, and now he was violating both of my best friends and treating them like they were nothing. How could he be so heartless? I wondered to myself. I remember when he used to pick us up and take us out for ice cream before taking us home. I remember the way he used to make lame dad jokes that were more endearing than they were funny. He seemed like such a kind, fatherly figure. I never expected him to be a part of something so horrific. "How much time do we have?" the stranger asked. "Less than 2 hours," John replied. "We haven't found the other one yet, and we need to. Soon," the strange man proclaimed. "Don't worry, we'll find her," John responded with a dark and merciless tone. I inched toward the laundry room, which led to the garage. I noticed the garage door opener on the shelf, so I picked it up and held it in my hand. This is my way out. But how? I knew I couldn't just open the door and run out. The door moved slowly and sometimes got stuck, so I was more likely to get caught that way. I heard glass crunching outside the laundry room, which meant that the men were close. My form is petite, so it was easy to curl inside the dryer after carefully opening it. I left it slightly ajar, just enough to appear closed, to not lock myself inside or make a ruckus trying to bust my way out. I heard the door to the laundry room open. "She's not in here," one of them said. "You think she got away?" the other asked. I looked at the remote in my hand, realizing I could use it as a distraction. "What was that?" one questioned. Both were silent and listening closely. "That's the garage door." They ran out of the laundry room. When I suspected the coast was clear, I cautiously stepped out of the dryer and ran for it. I ran out of the kitchen and into the living room, nearly slipping in blood. I ran as fast as I could until I finally made it home. Luckily, I lived only a few blocks away. I woke my mom and dad up crying and shivering. My dad called the cops and we drove behind them back to my friend's home where we met with the authorities. John and the other man were gone, but the cops kept a lookout until they found them. Although I was relieved when the authorities caught up to them, the friends that I have known and loved since I was a baby were gone, and I never felt so alone.
The chill of the night air clung to the windows as I watched my son, Noah, laughing and playing with his new friend, Ethan. It was heartwarming to see Noah so happy. As a single mother, I cherished these moments where he could forget the struggles we faced and just enjoy being a child. As the evening progressed, I noticed subtle signs that Ethan was not your typical playmate. Small disobediences, like not listening when I asked him to pick up their toys, seemed harmless at first. I dismissed it, thinking it was just the excitement of having a friend over. But as the night wore on, Ethan's behavior took a more concerning turn. I suggested ordering a pizza, thinking a simple meal would distract them. Yet Ethan insisted on having something more unsettling, like raw hamburger meat. I hesitated at this request, but Ethan assured me that he and his family did this often, as rare meat had the best flavor. Noah seemed entranced by the request, and was soon begging to have raw hamburger meat as well. I agreed they could try a small amount, but it had to be cooked in the pan first to kill any bacteria. Ethan did not like this compromise, and loudly exclaimed, "You're ruining it!" After the two had ate, I suggested a group game like hide and seek, but Ethan suggested another game. Savages and pioneers. One person is the pioneer who hides, and the savages hunt them down and scalp them if they find them, Ethan exclaimed with an excited look in his eyes. Noah, confused, replied, "What does scalp mean?" I started to change the subject when Ethan ran behind Noah, grabbing a handful of his hair. "It's when you take a sharp blade and cut here until you have all the hair," Ethan said, mimicking a sawing motion across Noah's forehead. I could see Noah's innocent mind trying to comprehend what Ethan was telling him. "Gee, that's a crazy way to get a haircut," Noah giggled, not fully grasping the horror. At this point, I was starting to get an uneasy feeling and decided to call Ethan's parents. I stepped in my bedroom and discreetly called the number Ethan had given me when he showed up earlier to my house. The number just rang with no answer. I attempted to call again, but this time all I got was busy dial tone. Deciding to end the night earlier than planned, I ushered the boys to bed, relieved to escape the eerie atmosphere that had enveloped the house. Both boys groaned at the prospect of going to bed early, but I was quickly reaching my creep limit with Ethan. I made sure they both got ready for bed and then tucked them in. Relieved that the night might be coming to an end, I went back to the living room and settled down to watch a movie. The stress instantly started to melt away, and before I knew it, I drifted to sleep on the couch. However, my peace was short-lived. In the dead of night, I was jolted awake by the metallic sounds of cutlery being tossed on the kitchen floor. Panic set in as I peered over the couch and discovered Ethan, wild-eyed and wielding a large kitchen knife. "Now we can play savages and pioneers," Ethan said with a sinister smile across his face. A surge of energy ran through my body as I jolted from the couch and ran towards Noah's room. I grabbed Noah, rushing to lock ourselves in the safety of our bedroom. My heart pounded as I listened to Ethan's relentless attempts to break in. Desperation forced me to call the police, my voice trembling as I described the nightmare unfolding in my own home. The arrival of the police brought a sense of relief, but the horror was far from over. It was then that I learned the chilling truth about Ethan. His family had endured nightly terrors at his hands, grateful for any respite. The sleepover was their desperate attempt to escape the relentless torment that plagued their lives. When I called their house earlier, they purposefully didn't answer the phone, instead choosing to leave the phone off the hook to avoid having to pick up Ethan from my house. As Ethan was subdued and taken away, I couldn't help but fear a mix of fear and sympathy. He was a child haunted by his own demons, locked in a cycle of torment and despair. The police informed me that Ethan would be admitted to an inpatient psychiatric facility, a place where professionals would try to unravel the twisted threads of his troubled mind. In the aftermath, I held Noah close, grappling with the realization that sometimes the monsters we fear most are the ones hiding in plain sight, wearing the innocent guise of a child's laughter. The horror of that night would linger, a haunting reminder that some guests should never be invited over again.
The air was thick with excitement as I lay in the unfamiliar darkness of my friend Emily's room. We had decided to have a sleepover with a few friends, and her house, nestled at the edge of the wood, felt enchanting. We had spent the night by gossiping about boys, watching movies, and eating tons of snacks. Mr. Thompson, Emily's father, had allowed us to pick out horror movies at the local Blockbuster, a real treat that most of our parents wouldn't allow. Soon enough, we all started to get tired and decided it was time to go to sleep. As the night wore on, my need to use the bathroom roused me from my slumber. The hallway stretched out like a forbidding tunnel as I made my way to the restroom. The house was silent, and only the creaking of the floorboards beneath my feet echoed through the corridor. Suddenly, a soft, flickering light caught my attention. It emanated from a partially open door, revealing a room adorned with shadows. I hesitated for a moment before curiosity overcame caution, and I stealthily approached the doorway. Peering into the dimly lit room, my eyes widened in confusion. A large stuffed bear sat in an office chair, facing a computer screen that displayed distressing and unsettling images. My heart pounded in my chest as I struggled to comprehend the grotesque scenes unfolding on the monitor. At first, I thought the images might be from one of the many scary movies Mr. Thompson rented. However, the longer I watched, the gorier and more realistic the footage became. At some point, I started to feel queasy and decided I had seen enough. As I inched back, the floor beneath me betrayed my presence with an ominous creak, To my horror, the bear's head turned slowly in my direction. Its glassy eyes locked onto mine, and a shiver ran down my spine. Panic set in, and I sprinted back to the safety of Emily's room, diving under the covers as if they were a shield against the unknown. I listened in the darkness, my breath catching with every subtle sound. Moments later, the door to the room creaked open. Through the veil of darkness, I could make out Mr. Thompson's silhouette inspecting the room. A chill ran down my spine as I imagined his cold gaze scanning the space where I had stood moments ago. Eventually he left, and I was left to grapple with the unsettling encounter. Morning arrived, bringing with it an illusion of normalcy. The tantalizing aroma of breakfast wafted through the air as I descended the stairs. The dining table was adorned with an elaborate spread, and Mr. Thompson greeted me with a forced smile. However, his eyes betrayed a sinister glint as they locked into mine. As I prepared to leave, Mr. Thompson pulled me aside with a grip that sent shivers down my spine. In a low, menacing whisper, he said, "If you liked what you saw, maybe we can have another sleepover soon." The threat lingered in the air as he released me, allowing me to escape the house with a feigned smile and a wave. Haunted by the disturbing images and the ominous warning, I left Emily's house with a secret burden. Several years later, Mr. Thompson was left paralyzed from a savage beating. Apparently, he dressed up as the bear and approached a small 9-year-old boy at a public park. The father of the boy happened to be an ex-convict who was more than happy to go bear hunting.
That concludes our journey into the realm of the unknown on Carrion Creature Feature. If you survive the tales that lurk in the shadows, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell for more haunting stories. Share your thoughts and your own bone-chilling experiences in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation alive. Until next time, sleep tight, and may your dreams be free from the creatures that haunt the night. Remember, the darkness is only a click away. Stay spooky.